hospitals rust. Our workers despair. But when we ask for help, the Republican Secretary of the Interior answers. They can make their case until doomsday, and no one is going to have sympathy for them. And when asked what programs exist to help Texas, the administration spokesman said, unemployment, welfare, things like that. Send the Republicans a message. Stop playing politics with our lives. Fight back, Texas. Vote Democratic.
And now, moderator for tonight's debate, Alan Schifrin of Amarillo College.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and we'd like to welcome you to our debate tonight. First of all, we'd like to introduce you to our candidates for tonight. First of all, Governor William Clements and Attorney General Mark White. And they will be debating this evening. And we would like to explain to you some of the ground rules that have been set up prior to this after we introduce you to our panelists. Asking questions tonight will be Pat Casey, who is the political editor for KVII-TV. Next will be Sarah Lee Teedy, who is the Austin bureau chief for the Dallas Times-Herald. Next is Mike Cochran with the Associated Press in Dallas. And finally, Carol Needland, Austin correspondent for WFAA-TV in Dallas. We would like to explain the format of our debate tonight. Each candidate will make a 3-minute opening statement. And there was a coin toss earlier, and Attorney General White won the toss and elected to go second this evening on the opening statement. After the opening statements, there will be a question period, and Governor Clements will form the first question, and each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to the question, and the opposing candidate will have 1 minute for rebuttal. Now that we have the ground rules set, we will start with the opening statement by Governor William Clements.
Three former Texas governors, John Connally, Preston Smith, and Alan Shivers, have endorsed my re-election, along with 4 former Texas attorneys general, John Ben Shepherd, Will Wilson, Wagner Carr, and Harold Mann. All were elected as Democrats, yet all of them are enthusiastically supporting my re-election as governor. Why? Because working hand in hand with the people of Texas, we've achieved remarkable results over the past 4 years. For example, on issues affecting the Panhandle, we have developed the first real Texas water plan to meet the serious long-term water needs of the Panhandle and all Texans. We convinced the Department of Agriculture to provide disaster relief to Texas farmers, and we provided special tax relief for all the farmers of this state. On education, we're improving the teaching-learning environment in Texas classrooms with better discipline and returning to the basics. On crime, the citizens of Texas joined together to help me pass my Texas War on Drugs and anti-crime package, the toughest laws on the books in any state. National issues like immigration and energy, we're working to control our border, and I've worked hard to improve our relations with Mexico, and we have developed America's first national energy plan. On the economy, Texas is leading the national economic recovery. We have the #1 economy of any state in the nation. 800,000 new jobs have been created in Texas since I became governor. In fact, 40% of all jobs created in America since I've been governor have been created in Texas. Last month, 60% of all jobs in America were created in Texas. The point is, no matter what anyone says, Texas is a great state with a great economy. We owe all of this kind of hard-working spirit and common sense of our people. We've managed our affairs well in Texas. We're one of only 5 states with no personal income tax and one of 6 with no corporate income tax. It's no wonder that Fortune magazine picked Texas as the #1 best business climate in America. We've cut more than $1 billion in taxes since I became governor. I'm a businessman, not a politician, and we run our state on a frugal, effective, business-like basis. At the end of our fiscal year, last August 31, our Texas surplus was $1.3 billion, an historic high, and the largest of any state surplus in the nation. Don't let anyone tell you different. You name it, and Texas does it best.
Our next statement will be made by Attorney General Mark White.
Good evening. I came here tonight to talk about the issues facing Texas. But first, there's something else I'd like to talk about. Governor, I've never shied away from a tough campaign, but I've always talked about the issues. I expected my opponents to do the same. You spent millions of dollars worth of advertising, some of it disguised as news programs, saying that my office has lost most of its cases. That's not true, and you know it. We've won over 31,000 cases, including major victories in prison reform and bilingual education. I'm proud of my record, and I'm looking forward to debating it with you. Likewise, I intend to take a hard look at your record. But lately, your campaign has taken an ugly turn. Over the last couple of months, you've gone from a hard-hitting examination of my record to some of the dirtiest tactics I've seen in Texas politics. It started when you called me Adolf Hitler, and that was beyond the realm of good taste. The tenor of your campaign worsened a few days ago when you dredged up the records of an arrest for DWI while I was in school almost 19 years ago. I regretted that incident then, and I regret it now, but I learned a lesson from it, and it has never occurred again. But this fake newspaper, you've gone too far. In here, you've accused me of everything from being responsible for murder to advocating the right of teachers to strike. You know better than that. It's not true. This thing is garbage, and that's where the people of Texas are going to throw it. I invite the press and the public to view it and to pass judgments on its content and also on the man who authorized it. I believe they will agree with me that it cheapens you and the office you hold. The real problem with things like this is that they keep us from discussing the important issues that face this state. We need to be debating about education, about how we can raise teachers' salaries and how we can assure that our children will have jobs when they graduate. We need to talk about jobs. The fact that 500,000 Texans are out of work tonight. We need to debate your proposal to bring guest workers into our state. And we need to talk about expanding new industry for Texas. We should be debating interest rates and why you signed into law a bill increasing interest rates on credit cards to 24%. We need to discuss transportation, how inadequate highways are choking Houston and Dallas, and how poor maintenance is destroying the highways and our farm-to-market roads. We need to discuss the huge increase in utility rates, and I'd like to discuss your appointments to the Public Utilities Commission and the fact that you don't want to have a consumer representative on that commission. I want to talk about how to preserve our environment, and I think we need to talk about your company's oil spill and how you handle it. These are the issues we need to discuss. But, Bill, if you continue irresponsible campaign tactics, not only will you cheapen the office you hold, you'll prove what many people already believe, that you'll do anything or say anything to get reelected. Tonight and for the rest of this campaign, let's turn our attention to the issues facing Texas.
And now we will go to the panelists for questions, and our first panelist will be Pat Casey, and our first question will be directed towards Governor Clements.
Okay, Governor, Mr. White said it in his opening statement, and let's give you a chance to respond. According to the press, it reported on Wednesday that your campaign staff had forced the Texas Attorney General to confirm that he'd been arrested on a drunk driving charge in 1963 in Athens, Texas. Attorney General White said the report was true, but that you, the governor, were using gutter tactics in the campaign. Whether it's aggressive campaigning or mudslinging or whatever it is you want to call it, will you continue to verbally attack and tear away at the Attorney General all the way up to the November election?
Well, Pat, I think it's a good question. Actually, the Attorney General raised the issue himself when he included the question in one of his polls. And this question surfaced in Athens, Texas, where it took place. I certainly had no control over the fact that it surfaced, and I think that it is a non-issue in this campaign, but it surfaced. And it first surfaced by the Attorney General himself when he included it in one of his polls. Now, the person that surfaced this in Athens knew all the history, and it was going to become a public issue. So if the Attorney General wants to quit talking about it, why, he can quit raising it as an issue. I don't consider it an important issue. And when he starts talking about winning all of his cases, that's like a doctor talking about curing everybody of chicken pox. What about those that died of cancer and the ones that died of a heart attack and all the other serious diseases? He hadn't won a major case. I consider him to be an incompetent lawyer, and I've said that to him, and I'll say it again.
General White,
Just a moment. The Attorney General gets 1 minute.
You know, I don't think the governor's told the truth about that either. He had his people out pushing that story to legitimate news media, and nobody would take it because it stinks. And that's exactly what they told him, and he had to push it with children at the Democratic convention. Nobody accepted it then, and nobody would print the story then. He had to go use his own personal campaign funds. He authorized it, and he's afraid to take responsibility for that type of campaign tactic. I think it's gutter politics, and I won't have any part of it.
Our next question will come from Sarah Lee Teedy.
General White, one of the major issues that promises to face the legislature next session is drunk driving legislation. There is a major move for that. Do you think that in any way this 19-year-old conviction for DWI would influence your ability to guide the legislature on that issue?
Not at all. I think maybe it'd make me more careful about how we did it and make sure we did a good job. As I said, that was a lesson to me then, and it still is. I think it's important that we have strong laws to stop driving while intoxicated and driving while under the influence of drugs. Right now, I think we need to see the laws that we have better enforced. And until we can see those laws passed, we need to enforce the ones we have.
Governor Clements, you have 1 minute to respond.
Well, you know, I find it curious, Sarah, that about a year ago, the Attorney General made a ruling which weakened our DWI penalties and laws. And he made this ruling as Attorney General. You know, I stand strong. I established a task force on the traffic safety, and the DWI is the absolute jewel in that crown. I can assure you that Colonel Adams will move forward in the legislative session, and we will present the strongest and the best DWI laws with mandated penalties that there is in this country. And I will predict that those laws will pass and Texas will reduce its accidents on the highway.
Our next question from Mike Cochran.
Governor, with the recent voter action in Oklahoma.
I didn't hear you, please.
I say, with the recent voter action in Oklahoma, Texas is now surrounded by states which have legalized horse race betting. What are your personal views on this issue, and will you submit or endorse a pari-mutuel betting bill in the 1983 legislature?
I have taken the position, I did this back in 1978 when I ran, and I made it very clear that I think that this is an issue that should be decided by the voters of Texas. I strongly advocate that we have a referendum for all the voters of Texas where they can express themselves in this regard. In our Republican primary, we put it on our primary ballot so that people could express themselves on this very sensitive issue. We went to the Democratic Party and we asked them, not once but several times, to please put this on the ballot so that we could have both parties having a referendum at the same time. They refused to do it. They would not do it. Now, I think that the people of Texas are entitled to have horse racing if they want it. But I want to have an absolute, straightforward referendum by the people of Texas to express themselves that this is what we should do in Texas. And if they say that that's what they want, I'm for it. If they say that they don't want it, I accept what their decision would be.
Thank you.
Attorney General White.
Of course, the people of Texas are going to be working through the legislature, and if the legislature passes a bill which would authorize pari-mutuel betting, I would veto any bill that did not have adequate protections against organized crime being part of that protection in the bill, and also if it did not provide for the vote of the people of Texas before any pari-mutuel betting would be permitted in Texas.